Hello, fellow humans. Today is one of my favorite people online. Um, she's, she's just a joy to be around online, and always has something fun or interesting to say. Plus, she's she's one of the alphabet people that a lot of us are, and we're going to talk a bit about that. But this is. Without even much of an introduction here, it's Triateyal. How you doing?
Hey, doing good. I am glad to be here. I am looking forward to this interview. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Oh, good. I appreciate that. I have too. I mean, like I said, I really like interacting with you on both Twitter and Facebook, and it's like I have to have you on. So-
Thank you. I have fun when our interactions too. So I am grateful for the compliment.
oh,
I at least try to be somebody that people enjoy being around.
well, you've succeeded. The well, my usual. I'll do it early. There's something I do a little bit later usually, uh, but I always have a thank you for everybody who's here for a specific reason. And while I've said you've been wonderful on Facebook and Twitter, I'm gonna thank you for how much you've promoted my channel in general and been around and watched the stuff. So I know you know the thank you was coming somewhere, but I figured I'd get that
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
there. Your
People
channel.
need to sub more to you. If you are watching and you're not subbed because I'm here, I'm going to find you. You need to sub to Christy. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Um, you, however, have a very nice channel. So um, now we get into the who are you and what do you do stuff.
I'm Triateyal, and I talk about being asexual and ex-Mormon. Those are the two big topics for me that I really feel a strong connection to. Um, I basically do my channel for awareness and because I want changes made. And the best way I've found that I can do that is talking about things. So that is the main focus of my channel. I may add other things if I feel like they're important enough to me, but those are the two things which I feel most drawn to discuss and talk about.
Okay, that's well, it makes a lot of sense. I know you're caretaking. Just for some background, you're caretaking for your sister. Do you have
Mm-hmm.
other family about?
Yeah, I caregive for my sister, and she and I both live with our dad. Um, I have a tendency not to trust roommates, and I would not be able to live with live without at least somebody else. But my dad and my sister are both still Mormon, and it is we're I'm lucky to have the family that I do because they accept me being ex-Mormon, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't tension over it sometimes. Um,
Yeah, that I was going to ask about that. I personally became atheist while my wife at the time was still Catholic. So
oh, yeah, that's tough. Um, my family does not know that I am atheist. I had to tell them that I was officially ex-Mormon. They had known it was coming. I had actually wanted to try to wait until my dad had passed away because I didn't want to hurt him.
yeah.
But it just got to a point where I couldn't have my name associated with that organization anymore and be happy with myself.
Well,
Um, because in in Mormon culture, you are not. you're still Mormon until you take your name off the rolls or you get kicked out. No matter what you do, you're still Mormon. And I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want that attached to my identity or my person.
Did you send the letter?
I went through a online lawyer service called Quit Mormon, and they sent the letter for me. I went through that way because I had heard horror stories of people trying to get out, of bishops losing, which is what most denominations call a pastor. But I was worried that my bishop would call me in for an interview because they like doing an exit interview and like send me all of this love bombing stuff. And I got a little bit of it, even though technically I wasn't supposed to, but not really a lot. I kind of got out without a lot of trouble. The big thing was that my bishop called in my dad to let my dad know that he had gotten the paperwork.
Ooh. Well.
Yeah, and I know the bishop. I don't know the bishop well, but I know him well enough to know that he may not have been trying to tattle on me. His thought process might have been, she might want to know where things are in the process, but I'm not allowed to contact her directly. So
right. It's been a while. I've forgotten the process.
Yeah, it could be either way, to be honest. So, I mean, and like I said, I don't have any problems with my former bishop. He seems like a good guy. So but it was basically, I didn't want to go through all the, why do you want to leave? Are you really, really sure you want to leave? Do you know what you're doing? It's like, I fully 100% understand what I'm doing. I don't have to answer that question to you. I don't want to. So that's why I went the route that I did.
Mine was fairly easy. I just told them I'm trans. We're good.
I guess they couldn't throw you out quick enough.
Pretty much. I wasn't. I was not that active anyway. So they were like, "Who are you again?" Oh, okay.
Yeah, in my case, I still live in the ward boundaries of where I grew up.
Oh.
So we're talking about people who have known me since I was like 4. So I got a little bit of love bombing. I did get an official letter from the Relief Society inviting me back in that basically said, "Hey, join the fun." And I'm like, I'm sorry, but how much fun can you really be if I'm not allowed to even speak the truth? Like, no. No.
You are the second ex-Mormon I've had on this month. So. I am.
Oh dear.
It's funny because I mean she and I didn't talk much about it because she just she did the same thing. I'm trans, and they went, okay, we're done.
Yeah, the church does not. They're not happy with anybody who is LGBTQ plus at all. They really are not. But there's something about being trans or non-binary that just will get you thrown out, it almost seems like, which is really, really sad. I don't think anybody should be in the Mormon church, and don't get me wrong. But the thing is that my standpoint is sometimes you have no way out of the church, and it would be nice if they let up on a bunch of things so that people who were trapped wouldn't be going through absolute hell. Because when you're trapped in the Mormon church, it is absolute hell.
Well, I don't know where you live, and you don't have to say what state or anything. My sister does live in Salt Lake City. So
yeah. Salt Lake City isn't as bad, even though technically that's where everything is. But the Mormon culture permeates through everything out there from what I understand, and it can be difficult to deal with.
It was very, 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 very white.
Yeah. And like stuff like seminary is part of the school day kind of thing, which is like for people who aren't Mormon, that's like the teenagers before school Bible study, or at least that's how it works here. And it's considered part of the education system there. I was told by somebody that lives out in that direction that they have a system set up where there's a neighbor from the church who's in charge of telling you when it's time to evacuate. And apparently, if they don't like you, oftentimes they'll wait until they absolutely have to tell you, hey, it's to evacuate in the middle of an emergency. Things like, if you're not Mormon, sometimes parents will tell their kids that they can't play with you, especially if you grew up Mormon. So, I mean, and again, realize I'm not from Utah. I've never been to Utah. I just have friends out there who have kind of told me these little tidbits. And I'm like, why are y'all still out there? Please move.
Well, the funny thing, when I was there for a little over, well, I guess a week and a half. But I went there specifically for the horror writers convention for World Horror, and the American Atheist, I think it was in the hotel right next door. So there was a lot of picketing when I went out for smoke.
Oh man, yeah, I can imagine. Because there seems to be a hierarchy of what there's definitely a hierarchy of what Mormons will put up with. Mormons don't like anybody outside of their own group. They'll tolerate you outside of their own group, and they'll be sweet to you if they think that they can convert you. But atheists are kind of down at the bottom of we're okay with other Christians, but atheists, no, we don't like them at all.
Well, they were picketing World Horror too, and it's like I came out, but I'm one of you. They didn't care. Anyway, since you brought up on the various spectrums, a lot of your channel deals with being asexual, and what I mean, generally, is there a way to just talk about how you are asexual? That's not
a
way to put it.
There is a way for me to describe it. In general, how we define asexuality as a community is a lack of sexual attraction, or feeling it very rarely, or under a very specific circumstance. I consider myself gray ace, which is underneath the spectrum. It can range a little bit from absolutely no sexual attraction at all to maybe just a little bit. I have felt sexual attraction for one person my entire life. I still have no clue how I felt sexual attraction for them. Not sure why it kicked in. I know why it went away, but I don't know how it kicked in or why. But I just for the longest time did not feel sexual attraction at all, and I still typically don't feel sexual attraction. However, that does not mean that I don't want a relationship, that I am not don't have romantic feelings. I do. Now, my romantic attraction is generally I fall in love with my best friend, but only after a number of years. That's typically how that plays out. but I like physical affection. I like hugging. I like kissing. I like cuddling. In fact, I miss that aspect of being in a relationship quite a bit.
Yeah.
And my romantic feelings fluctuate quite a lot, but I do have them, and I do want a relationship. Sometimes it really depends. Right now, I'm kind of in my more
Well,
kind of thing, but
I know a lot of people confuse asexual with aromantic, which is
yes, it is. It is not the same thing. There are many aces who are also aromantic, and there are many aromantics who are from the asexual spectrum. It, but the thing is that your romantic and your sexual attractions don't always necessarily line up.
hmm,
I have friends in my community who are pan-romantic, and they can feel romantic attraction regardless of gender. Gender doesn't really factor in for them, but they fall in love and um, they want to have romance. Um, there's a definition that goes around for a romantic that says not wanting a romantic relationship, and that's totally not true.
yeah.
A romantic just means, similarly to being asexual, that they don't feel romantic attraction. They can want and desire romance just like anybody else, and it depends on the individual. So don't assume just because you know somebody's sexual attraction that you know their romantic attraction, and vice versa.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, in the trans community, most of us are considered to be gay, which I get. There's a gay contingent because we're still attracted to the people we were attracted to before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I like twinks better than bears now. I mean, that's as close as I get to difference.
Well, for me, my romantic attraction has almost always been towards the opposite sex. Um, Actually, it always has been towards the opposite sex, but it's just, and there's a reason why I call myself romantic-ish,
Yeah.
because there are times where I do want and desire being romantic, and then there are other times where it's like, I saw a thing that said once, romantic love is like a moth. It looks really, really pretty from far away. But the moment it starts coming at me, I start screaming and running away.
uh, the the other one that I know of is that I understand, and please correct me anything I get wrong, which is part of why you're here, because I'm not. This is a place I'm not familiar with as well. There are people who only have sexual attraction once they have fallen in love.
Yes, that is considered a form of gray sexuality, and that it is. It's basically falling in love with that specific circumstance for them.
Right.
Um, Another specific circumstance can be once you have become close enough to a person in general. Another specific circumstance is that somebody doesn't feel attraction until they find out that the other person is attracted to them.
Hmm.
Some people attractions don't turn on until they're in a relationship, and they get attracted once they figured out how to make their partner sexually pleased. There's all kinds of different circumstances um, that can fall under, which can be highly confusing. for a lot of people, including aces, trying to figure themselves out, especially because there's not a lot of information out there. And a lot of it,
Yeah.
when you choose somebody, it's like, oh, that just sounds normal. And it's, no, it's not. How many people just look at somebody and think, man, I'd like to bang them? Like,
Yeah. Well, when we were talking a little bit ago, I mentioned I was voluntarily celibate, and it's going on 18 years now. But that had a lot to do with realizing that something was really wrong with my body. So that is not under the ACE umbrella.
no, celibacy and being ace are not the same thing. Especially with a lot of the connotations. Um, Sometimes you can choose to be celibate just because you know, for whatever reason, sex is not right for you at that moment. But there's almost a religious connotation to it where people are like, oh, well, you're just putting away the feeling of lust in order to be a more virtuous person.
Oh,
And
that's
it's,
definitely not it.
oh no. And I'm just bringing that up because I know that you weren't, that is not what you meant. But at the same token, that is also slammed against asexuality a lot. It's like, well, you're just celibate because, like, oh, you do have those lustful feelings. You're just, lying about it or faking it. And it's, no. I when I was still Christian, I prayed that God would give me the feelings of lust because I felt so bad. I felt like something was wrong with me.
Well, that's one of the things that puts you in the alphabet, and I know the alphabet people is one of the insults, but I'm kind of like, I'm reclaiming this, goddammit.
It's difficult, and I've also heard people say that if I've heard some people say that we should stop using all of the letters, and I get where they're coming from. I personally have mixed feelings on it, um, because one of the arguments that we hear is like, why add all of the letters to the LGBTQ plus? These people outside our community already think we're a joke and don't take us seriously. And it's like, they're going to find any reason not to take you seriously. No matter what you do, there are just going to be people who, are going to, if you let go of that, they'll just find something else to call you a joke or laugh at you about. And fortunately, that's just the way of it. So if people want to reclaim alphabet soup, that's fine by me. If people want to be upset by being called that, I also completely understand.
Well, yeah, that's kind of why I said it, so nobody thinks it's an insult. I mean, I am not Blair White, for God's sakes. I'm
It didn't take me very long to dislike Blair White. I had no clue who she was about 2 or 3 months ago. And then I looked at her Twitter for like 5 seconds. I was like, nope, I'm out. I am out. Out. Even as unknowledgeable as I am about the trans community, I'm out. I know this is bad.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of when I posted a couple of days ago that trans people can be transphobic. I mean, Blair was like right in my head.
Internal phobia is one of the worst things ever because it doesn't typically just hurt you, it winds up hurting other people. And
Right.
I think that it is difficult to not love LGBTQ plus and not have something internalized. It's I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's difficult. The problem is that there's a difference between realizing that, hey, I need to work on this and hey, I'm going to use my phobias against everybody else. And I think Twilight definitely falls into the I'm going to use this to hurt everybody else. I don't know if she realizes that's what she's doing, but I'm happy being ace. I'm comfortable with it, but I still have moments of internalized things. Like, for instance, I personally think that I am not eligible to date anybody. I know logically that that is true. I know logically that I could find somebody else in the ace community and possibly be happy with them. But internally, my head and my heart scream, no, you can't. You have too much baggage. You have too many things that you're dealing with. There's, all of those things that I was told growing up and being ace about how horrible I would be as a partner. They're still mucking around up there. The difference, I think, is I realize that that's an unhealthy attitude to have, and I'm trying to work through it instead of telling other aces that they have the same, that they shouldn't be dating, or that, they're terrible people. And it's really difficult to deal with. And I think as a whole, the LGBTQ plus community all has to deal with their internalized stuff at some point.
This is, it's, oh, sure. There's a lot of internalized with being trans. There's, it's, there are days when I say this is crazy. What am I doing? This is a mistake. And then I remember how horrible I felt before it came out. So
yeah, it's and we get these messages as we're growing up of these things, and how, and even if it's not said outright to you, there are just things that you kind of take in and accept because that's what you've been told all along. And it's just, and that winds up being, no, that does not mesh with my own personal experience or who I am as a person.
Right. I'm guessing being ace and being with the Mormon background has got to be even more difficult, because that would be.
It was.
You're supposed to be. I'm trying to be nice about it, but I don't think I can figure out a better word. You're supposed to be breeding.
Yeah. Like, people don't understand. Our American society as a whole does focus on romance and marriage. It does. I am not discounting that, and I am not saying that it is not hard for aces or arrows to deal with those things, but the extremes to which Mormonism takes that is incredibly difficult. They start you in young. You start talking about going to the temple and growing up and getting married as young as like primary ages, like before you even get baptized at 8.
Oh dear.
Yeah. I remember nursery. I don't remember being told in nursery, but I looked it up just because I wanted to make sure that, it was like, okay, I don't remember when this idea that I was supposed to grow up and get married got implanted in my head. I know it was through church. When did it actually happen? And I looked at the nursery manual, which is basically for, like, I think they let kids in that nursery after 6 months, so it's basically 6 months to the 3-year-old.
Yeah.
They actually start teaching you about the temple in nursery.
Oh dear.
They don't outright say you're going to go to the temple and get married, but they kind of imply that that's what the lesson is about.
Yeah, I was a convert, so I didn't get all of that, which, you
It
know.
was not a convert, and I was extremely into it. My mom was very, very much, she was a convert, so I think she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to teach me very well. So she
Oh,
threw me into church, and people are probably going to take this the wrong way, but I like rules. I like boundaries. I like knowing if I do this, this is wrong, and I'm going to either hurt somebody or do something I shouldn't. Because when things are not clear, I have a tendency to trip all over myself and make things terrible. So I just threw myself in church. I loved I loved what I viewed as the consistency because it felt
right.
consistent. I loved, knowing what the rules and the boundaries were and what to do and what not to do. I loved thinking that I was getting things right because I was getting enough feedback to be like, okay, you're doing things well. But it comes with all of the other really terrible, crappy stuff. Like, you find out later that, you didn't actually know the history of the church and just how bad it was.
Oh, well, yeah, there's that. I'm not entirely sure why I converted. To this day, I have no idea why. I think it was just the last
I
stop.
I'd like for somebody to be able to explain that to me because, like, I can understand me having grown up and not really knowing anything else. Like, I didn't know anything else. So, like, how was I supposed to know that there was better? Or was I supposed to know, you know, all of the things that were being hidden from me? I still I don't understand how people can convert to it. I'm not trying to dismiss anybody's
Oh,
experiences or anything like that, but it's just like I don't understand how you convert. I just don't, unless there is something that you are needing that you think the church will offer you. I honestly don't get.
I, I can put it this way. I did not know atheism was an option.
That's fair.
And I needed the sense of whatever else Mormon does, it does give you a sense of family. And I was in a very bad place at the time.
I can understand that, and I it can appear like family. I have kind of a little bit of a different perspective, but again, grew up in it. Um, my sister is disabled, and my
Yeah.
dad was in the military. So my mom basically took care of my sister and I. She didn't have to worry about finances or going to work, but she basically took care of my sister and I pretty much by herself up
Ooh.
until the time up until about the time that she turned 5-ish or 6-ish. I think somewhere between 4 and 7 was when my mom was finally able to get somebody to babysit for my little sister because nobody would help my mom out. And they would often say, "Oh, we're a family, we'll do anything for you." And then my mom would say, "Well, I need this." And they would be like, "No, not like that."
Well, yeah, the way some of the things I did find out is how they dealt with disability and such like that. When I was marked permanently disabled, all of a sudden nobody was visiting me anymore.
Yeah, they do not handle disability well in church. I can't go into it because those are not my stories to tell.
Yes, I
But
very much agree. Understand.
The ableism I saw directed at my sister was one of the big factors that got me out of the church. It was not the breaking point or necessarily the biggest, but it definitely added to the pile.
Um,
Um,
yeah,
I my mom was not an appreciated person at church, because if it came to my sister or I, she would tear you apart if she thought you were a threat to either of us.
I would not doubt. Well, any good mother would. I think good. I don't know.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very strange situation, so.
Well, and the thing is that, like, a lot of mothers in the Mormon church wind up eventually just giving up because they don't get anywhere, and they just kind of nod their heads and go whatever. My mom never did.
Well, that's good.
She was not. She was. Yeah, and I remember my mom being in the bishop's office more than once over things with my sister. Because somebody did something and she didn't like it, and she felt like it needed to stop, and so she wound up going into the bishop's office yelling at him, which anybody who's grown up in the church knows that's a big no-no. You don't yell or fight. You don't even criticize. You're not allowed to criticize, and unfortunately, that was all three, and my mom was not a well-liked person at church.
Yeah, I would guess. If it's okay to ask and tell me, I'm always willing for someone to say no. When did your mother pass, or is she still alive and not there?
It's been a few years. It's not been a long time, but it's I would say within the past 5 years. I'm not going to say exactly, but within the past 5 years. And I ended up taking care of her too. I did not get help from the church on my own. I got some help, and there were some church members who went well out of their way to do what they could. I do not want to say like nobody at church helped us. That's not true for when my mom passed away. But when things started to get bad, a lot of people basically said different varying versions of there's three of you. You should be able to handle it all yourself. My mom did not get sacrament after she was put in hospice, even though she asked. When she became homebound, she never got sacrament again, which I personally am pissed off about, not because I believe in sacrament anymore, which is communion for other churches, but
no, but she believed in.
She was denied I was upset that she was denied a ritual that's so important to her. Yeah. It was so important that when she had a mental break and she was hallucinating things, she held a sacrament service at her house and begged my dad to do sacrament with her, and she was just so badly she wanted it. She was out of sorts. She was hallucinating, and yet the thing that she wanted most was to have sacrament. And I am still pissed to this day that nobody could be bothered to bring sacrament out to her, even though I know of at least 5 worthy priesthood holders that are within a 10-minute drive of our house.
Well, I've got a bishop on the block who has never actually visited me, so I know he's there.
Well, I mean, I'm glad nobody's visiting now, but I mean, it was just like, I was so upset because, I mean, it was just a simple request, and you're supposed to be able to ask. And our bishop at the time said, well, she's only allowed once a quarter. And my dad was bawling on the other side of the phone. And my dad's not one to, like, he doesn't cry a lot. But he's not one of those guys you think, like, I'm a man, I don't cry. But but to put him at that point takes quite a bit. And I heard my dad bawling on the phone, asking just for anybody to come by. He didn't care who it was. He didn't care if it was one of the teenagers. He didn't care if it was somebody he'd never met. All he wanted was for his wife to pick a sacrament.
Yeah.
Because that's what she wanted. And that was just one of the worst things for the family. Just knowing that she got denied for basically what I think is a bullshit reason.
Well, I think it's a bullshit reason too. You're not alone. I mean, I didn't know about it beforehand, but I'm going bullshit right now.
Yeah, the rule in the handbook is that you only have to provide sacrament once a quarter, which I would assume would mean like once every 3 months.
Yeah.
And the bishop said, well, we can only do it once a quarter. And my dad's going, but you've never been out here. You can send somebody.
Is it just you two as far as siblings?
Yeah, it's just my sister and I are the only two siblings. My mom had me, and then she had Hufflepuff, my little sister. And after she had Hufflepuff, she said, "Oh, I'm done." My sister's spina bifida was severe. She does well with it, but she was born in the 80s, and at that time, most spina bifida children did not make it past their 20s or their 30s.
Yeah.
A couple people probably make it their 50s or 60s, at the very least.
I know a little bit about it, but only enough to be dangerous. And if I opened my mouth, I would probably say something completely stupid. So I'm not going to. But yes, I've seen it, and it's
hers was not the most dangerous form of it, but it was pretty high up there. When they did her first surgery, a couple of hours after she was born, the doctors were prepping my parents for the possibility that she may not make it through the surgery. That's the kind of thing that my mom was dealing with.
That's rough that you're dealing with that too. I mean, I'm sure you love your sister, but it's also good. There's got to be times you just go, I'm sorry. What's that?
Yeah, I lucked out in a lot of ways. My sister is an adult, and while she doesn't always function as one, I don't have to teach her right from wrong. I don't have to teach her how to, go and make food for herself. I don't have to teach her any of those things. Most of what I deal with her is getting tired of being at doctor's office and getting tired of dealing with assholes who don't know how to deal with somebody with spina bifida. And I have more support than mom did too. I have my dad is no longer in the military.
Right.
While he stays mostly out of my sister's medical stuff, mostly because he feels like that is more my job description. He keeps up with it. He could cover for me if I needed it. If I really, really needed it. But yeah, it does have its own difficulties, but I do want people to be aware that it's no more difficult than if I were taking care of a young adult or a teenager. She handles a lot of things well. And a lot of what I deal with is basically things I would do for myself anyways, such as cooking a meal or cleaning the house.
Well, that's good. I mean, coming to terms with it, no, I'm not going to get into that story. I'm sorry. My sister had a degenerative.
All right.
Had some one of the other ones in that group of things. So I don't want to compare and contrast, but when she died fairly young,
Yeah.
so it was difficult.
Honestly, we were surprised at how well Hufflepuff did. She's
Yeah.
kind of and I don't know the Mormon equivalent of this, but pretty much if somebody tells her she can't do something or that it will be too hard for her, kind
Yeah.
of a hold my beer kind of a kid.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah,
we had a doctor when she was growing up that told us that she would never talk. And while my sister is partially nonverbal, if she has something she wants to tell you, you will hear it with that.
uh, I I get it. My sister at least was not at least, but was verbal. It was, but the illness was, you could see it coming. Strangely enough, she's my stepsister. My stepfather, all of us changed our names when we turned 18, so that's what he was like. Um,
Yeah.
and so we were very close, and she wound up working for my mom in the last couple of years just because no one else would hire her. Well, not just because no one else would hire her. She was actually good at what she did, but I don't know. It's that is rough. Yeah, just saying that is rough is like understatement, at least. The
Yeah, things are harder on her than they are on me at the end of the day. She is the one who lives with her body. She is the one who lives with her limitations. And she's real sweet and she is easy to get along with, so that helps.
yeah.
But I think my biggest complaint is, like I said, dealing with the assholes who get it. Doctors' offices can be a nightmare for me. I get so tired of them sometimes. Don't get me started on how the government runs things when it comes to disability, because that you won't make it to your next appointment. Oh, so yeah.
I've been through the disability ringer with the government. Yeah, it's no.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't have to.
That's a topic I should bring some people in. And that's a topic I should bring some people in sometime to just complain about on my channel. Watch my channel get deleted real fast.
Well, I have one more question because we're actually running short. I'm doing 2 of these in one night, so I'm having to really, instead of just going on till it's natural ending, I have to figure out, okay, I have to start ending now. I didn't ask you why you started your channel.
I started my channel partially because I was allowed to speak, and I liked it so much because I came from a culture in being in Mormonism of your silence is pretty much demanded of you. You're not allowed to criticize. You're not allowed to speak up. You're not allowed to say anything. And also another thing is I had gotten to a point where I was tired of educating people who should know better, i.e. doctors and therapists. And I figured that I was not the only one. And I hope that my channel is a resource where where it explains it well enough to where somebody can hopefully go to somebody else and say, here, this is relatable enough to where you can hopefully get it. And I also want to raise awareness in general because I didn't have asexuality until I was in my 30s. And the later you hear about asexuality, the more likely you are to wind up having kids or getting married and not realizing that you're ace, and
Yeah.
being in a relationship. And it is difficult to be in a relationship with an aloe when neither of you know. An aloe is what we call non-aces. But
Right.
it's difficult to be in a relationship where you don't know. Even if you're aware that something is different, if you don't have the way to verbalize it and communicate it, you're going to wind up getting yourself hurt and the other person in your relationship.
Yeah.
So those are the main reasons I'll kind of my goals for my channel. I hope I'm meeting them.
Well, your channel's very good. I mean, I learned a lot from it, and I thought I knew stuff. So, that's.
I think the most gratifying thing for me is, and that's not been a lot of people, but I have had about 2 or 3 people say to me, and they're friends, and I've had people say to me, "Hey, I didn't realize that I was ace, or that or had the words for it." And they said that it helped them understand themselves a little bit better. And I mean, that to me is just, that's one of the best things that I've gotten on my channel so far.
Well, yeah, that's one of the for all the. I mean, just on my side, for all the trans channels that are on YouTube, believe me, I ate them while I was going for the year before. It just anything you can give me, I will take it. So I can understand it on that level, and now I can talk to my one friend who says he's ace, and I didn't know really what he was talking about, and now I can ask him which ace. At least I have some idea of the difference. So.
Yeah. It's. I just want to reiterate. I say it all the time. Don't take my stories and how I talk about being ace and assume that that's the way that it works for everybody, because it's all individual. It's going to be your experience as an ace is going to be influenced by so many different factors. And there are some people who are ace and don't know it, and don't have nearly the trouble getting along as I have had in my past.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind as well. But, and I'm not saying this to you because we talked a little bit before, but just in general, because I'm on your channel, I want to make sure that nobody gets the wrong idea. But just because one of us does not mean that applies to all of us.
It's the same over on this part of the alphabet.
Yeah.
I've gotten my other trans friends told me this, so I know what I'm talking about. And I say, yes, you know what you're talking about in relation to them, not me.
Yeah, and something that I've come across, and it does wind up getting me to where it's like I don't know what to do, is you cannot tell a person who is in a community what their experience is, especially if you're not from that community.
Yes.
Doing that in general to anybody, because something that I've noticed online with the autistic community on Twitter is a lot of people will say, well, I work with autistics and I know this better than you do. And it's like, I'm freaking autistic. It's like, you cannot know better than me what my experiences and what I'm dealing with are.
Absolutely. No, everybody, I mean, the insults is that we're special snowflakes, but we are, and I'm cool with that.
Actually, you know what I find hilarious is like people will be like, "You're a special snowflake," but then like those same people will go off and go crazy about the Starbucks cup. Like it's a coffee cup. It doesn't have Nazi symbols on it.
What's the gay agenda
I
this
can
year?
understand if you put racist symbols on it or something, but it's a coffee cup. Get over yourself. Or happy holidays. Oh my God, we're on Christmas. No, no, calm down, honey. Stop
Well,
calling us special snowflakes when you're getting all up in arms over that.
absolutely. It was. I have been looking forward to this, and it was well worth the wait. You've been wonderful on here. I thank you so much for coming on. It means
Thank you for
it does.
hearing me.
Yes. Oh, anytime. There are people who are going to be cycled back in, so you're probably going to move at some point. We'll do something different. But yes, thank you so much for being here. I'm going before we say goodbye. I'm going to do what I call do every time. It's called I call it the YouTube prayer. So if you liked what you see, please consider giving it a like. Please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. I do have a PayPal for one-time donations and a Patreon if you want to actually help me eat, which is always lovely. So my channel name now is Christy Abbey, which is cool. I had a pretentious one before, and Patreon is also Christy Abbey. They realized I have a name as well. So Triateyal. Your link will be in the description, but spell it out for the people who are not actually looking at the description.
Yeah, it's you can find me on Twitter and my YouTube is Triateyal, Trieeyal. I do have a Facebook, and it's basically Tria, Tria, and then a space and Teyal. And I did that because Facebook would not allow me to do just the first name.
Yes.
So, but you can find me there. I'm fairly active on Twitter. My Facebook tends to get a little bit more personal because there are things I can say on there that I don't get to say around a lot of my real life peeps.
Yeah.
And if you're here because of me, if you're here because of me, you better be subscribed to Christy.
Oh.
There's a button down there.
That is very sweet, and thank you. And thank you again. It has been absolutely lovely having you on. We absolutely have to do something again. Bring me on one of your streams when you do. I'm usually available.
Yeah, I'm going to be slightly inactive over the next month because I do not do well during the holiday season and I tend to hibernate.
Yeah, I get you.
So, yeah, what January back around, I have 2 videos that I'm working on as best I can under the conditions that I've got. But yeah, sometime maybe I'll have you on that day where it's like we get everybody drunk and you try to say my name while drunk. That'd be great.
Well, I don't drink, so I probably have a little bit of an advantage.
Cheating is allowed. But yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I would love to get together again sometime. That would be great. So
absolutely, and I'm sorry I have to rush the having to go here today, but scheduling is really tight. So.
I completely understand. I have times where it's like that too, so it's fine.
All right. I will. Well, I'll talk to you in a minute once I hit the stop button, but I will talk to you online soon. All right. Going off.
See you soon.